time to go through both of these chapters, but I will say that I broke them up separately. You know, a lot of people address relationships as a whole, but I think in the African American community, we have we have a lot of fighting between the sexes and all that, so I needed to put everything separately in terms of, what the women are going through and what the men are going through. So I'll breeze through Black women in relationships. Challenge 1, bad attitudes. Okay, now, I want to be honest about this. I've had so many men read this book and say, yes, I'm glad you're a woman and you're saying it. Okay, and I addressed this head on, and actually I started with women before men, because overall I want us to know that we have much more power than we think we have. We have a lot more control about how relationships go. We have a lot more control about how men treat us. We have a lot of that, but I think we've lost a lot of that over the years and realizing where we really stand as people. So I start out by talking about our bad attitudes, because they can hear it from me. You can't get mad at me because I'm a woman. I know how I act. I know how women act, and we're not going to get into a debate about, well, you don't understand how I feel. I understand that our attitudes and our perspective and how we treat people, we have to be very conscious of that. So I just talk about, some ways that we may have a negative attitude when it comes specifically to relationships. I talk about energy and how what you give off is what you attract. So if you're walking around talking about everybody's a dog and they're not worth this and they're not worth that, who wants to be with that? Really? What are you going to attract? You're not going to attract some successful, rich man that's looking to sweep you off your feet when you give off a negative attitude like that. Secondly, I talk about over-masculine women. And some of these chapters, or some of these sections, I enjoy myself. This one made me laugh. But there are a lot of women who, not necessarily by fault of their own, have been in a position where they're the head of the household now, and they run everything themselves, and they order the kids around, and they order their man around. And so I talk about the pros and cons of being over masculine and how a lot of African American women have lost themselves and lost touch with their femininity. So, in challenge 3, emotional baggage. We've all heard of baggage and bag lady. And the main thing that I want to point out in this section is that I talk about some ways to dump that baggage. When you're in relationship with somebody or you're dating somebody new, I talk about how you can systematically go through things that may have happened to you and kind of just dump some of that baggage and move forward. A lot of us know that we have a lot of baggage from jumping from relationship to relationship, but we don't know where to start and where to move forward from that. I also talk about shallow women, materialistic women, toxic friendships. Toxic friendships is a huge one, okay? And considering the climate of the dating scene these days, it's amazing to me what I see. When, if I go out to dinner or go out to a particular place, I love the idea of sisterhood and sororities and things like that. But we have developed some toxic habits in our community in terms of, if we have something going on with our relationship and we're going to talk to one of our girlfriends, it could go in a totally negative direction. Instead of encouraging each other and say, hey, girl, maybe you lost your man because you don't know how to cook. Or maybe, we're not helping each other. We're saying, well, he ain't nothing. You don't need him. Let's go hang out. And I talk about the fact that a lot of people take the habits that they had in middle school and high school, and they're actually carrying on those habits as adults. And I say, hey, let's really look at this, okay? If you have the same clique you had in kindergarten, and you have the same approach to friendships and male-female relationships, maybe you should look at that, and maybe you should think about that. So that was a good one. I talk about self-righteous behavior. With this, not only do I talk about, various social issues, but I talk about religious issues and point out some of the hypocrisy that we have, because we're, in my opinion, a culture of extremes. So either we're way to the left or we're way to the right, or we'll have people that are very religious and they're preaching to everyone and they're judging people. And so basically when I talk about developing relationships, I talk about how it's important to let a person be their self and really be yourself. Be honest. Don't be so religious to one extreme and then and then have to hold yourself to that same standard when you really want to be yourself in a relationship. So I just go into detail about that. So the self-righteous behavior, the victim mentality. Another one that I really like is promiscuous women. And I really talk about, the negative effects of being promiscuous as a woman. And I talk about, for example, we have the whole, Facebook internet age, okay? And I don't want to call anyone out because I don't know your personal lives. But I know there are a lot of women who don't think past today in terms of what they're exposing on the internet. Everybody wants to be a model. Everybody wants to take pictures turned around and, legs here and arms there and this and that, And I talk about, hey, you are going to be, you're going to want a career one day. You're going to have children one day. You may already have children. And I think that somebody should speak out about it. Think about your future and how, you wanting attention temporarily could cost you in the end. And there are a lot of adults who feel like they already know everything. I'm speaking to grown women here. I'm not talking about teenagers and people in high school. There are a lot of adult women that don't realize how things can come back to bite them. Look how many celebrities have, taken video phone pictures and things like that and not thought about the result of their actions. Your reputation precedes you many times. And you don't want to be in a situation where you clean yourself up and you're approaching a healthy relationship and that person is like, oh, well, she has a reputation for this, she has a reputation for that. That's very real as adults, not just people in high school. And you don't want that to come back to bite you.